Ethiopia is one of Africa's most ancient countries, with its civilization stretching back thousands of years. Historically known as Abyssinia or Ethiopia, it was ruled by the Semitic Abyssinians, Habesha, predominantly composed of the Amhara, Tigrayans, and the Cushitic Uighur. The eastern escarpments of the Ethiopian highlands and adjacent lowlands were home to the Harari, Hala, who established sultanates such as Afat and Adal, as well as the Afar people. The central and southern regions were inhabited by ancient groups like the Sidama and the Semitic Garaj. One of the earliest significant kingdoms to emerge in the region was Demti in the 10th century BC, with Yeha as its capital. By the 1st century AD, the Aksumite kingdom rose to prominence in present-day Tigray, establishing its capital at Aksum and becoming a major Red Sea power. This kingdom expanded its influence over South Arabia, Meroe, and surrounding territories. During the reign of King Ezana in the early 4th century, Christianity was declared the state religion. However, the Aksumite Empire began to decline with the rise of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula, which gradually diverted trade routes away from the Christian Aksum, leading to economic isolation and decline. The fall of Aksum paved the way for the rise of the Zagwe dynasty, which shifted the capital to Lalibela. The Solomonic dynasty succeeded the Zagwe in the 13th century and oversaw a period of military reform and imperial expansion, enabling Ethiopia to assert dominance in the Horn of Africa. The Greek term Ethiopia, derives from Archeops, Athiops, an Ethiopian which combines Aitho, I burn, and ops, face, signifying burnt face as a noun and red-brown as an adjective, according to the Liddell Scott Jones Greek-English lexicon. Herodotus used the name to refer to the regions south of the Sahara known to the ancient world, Ecumene. Homer's earliest references to Ethiopia describe two distinct groups, one in Africa and another extending from eastern Turkey to India. In antiquity, the term Ethiopia often referred primarily to the modern-day region of Sudan, the Upper Nile Valley, south of Egypt, known as Kush, and, by extension, to sub-Saharan Africa. References to Aksum as Ethiopia began only in the 4th century AD. Following classical and biblical traditions, the 3rd century Monumentum Adelitanum inscription from the Aksumite Empire notes that the Aksumite king ruled a territory bordered by Ethiopia and Sassu. King Ezana eventually expanded his domain by conquering Nubia. In the following century, Gay inscriptions used Ethiops, interchangeably with Hbst, Habashat, designating the highland inhabitants of Aksum. This term evolved into Hbs, Arbash in Sabaic and Habasha in Arabic. The 15th century Gay Book of Aksum attributes the name Ethiopia to a legendary figure named Ethiopies, an extra-biblical son of Cush, son of Ham, credited with founding the city of Aksum. In English and outside Ethiopia, the nation was historically referred to as Abyssinia, a name derived from the Latinized form of the ancient Habash. It has been suggested that Punt was a kingdom located in the Horn of Africa, supported by archaeological discoveries, including Egyptian mummified baboons traced to modern-day Ethiopia, as well as caves in Somaliland that date to the era of Punt. Egyptian records dating back to around 3000 BC refer to regions south of Nubia or Kush as Punt and Yam. The ancient Egyptians possessed myrrh, an export of Punt, which historian Richard Pankhurst views as evidence of early trade between the two regions from the outset of ancient Egypt. Records from the 1st and 2nd dynasties, 3128–88 BC, show myrrh was a significant import from the Horn of Africa. Inscriptions and depictions from the era also suggest that the Egyptians imported ivory, animal skins, myrrh trees, and ostrich feathers from the coastal regions of Africa. Notably, a record from the 4th dynasty, 2789–2767 BC, mentions a Puntite serving the son of Cheops, the architect of the Great Pyramid. J. H. Breasted proposed that these early trade routes were facilitated by overland travel along the Nile and its tributaries, such as the Blue Nile and Atbara. The Greek historian Agatharchides described the Egyptians' seafaring activities, noting that during the Old Kingdom, 30th to 25th centuries BC, Egyptian ships navigated the Red Sea to reach the Mur country. The earliest documented voyage to Punt took place in the 25th century BC during Pharaoh Sahari's reign. However, the most famous expedition occurred under Queen Hatshepsut around 1495 BC, depicted in reliefs at her temple at Deir el-Bahri in Thebes. These reliefs illustrate an expedition returning with myrrh trees, sacks of myrrh, gold, ivory, exotic woods, and animals. Despite extensive trade and contact, detailed information about the location and people of Punt remains limited, and various theories continue to circulate. The Egyptians often referred to Punt as God's land due to its abundant resources like gold, ivory, and myrrh. Evidence of ancient connections with the region includes obsidian traced to Ethiopia and the Aegean. While little is known, it is speculated that Punt may have disbanded due to ethnic tensions, leading to the emergence of the kingdoms of Macrobia and Dmt around the 1st millennium BC. Recent excavations at the Mai Adrasha site near Shire in northern Ethiopia have uncovered a settlement predating the kingdoms of Dmt and Aksum by centuries. Dated to around 1250 BCE, Mai Adrasha is the oldest known town in sub-Saharan Africa, notable for extensive metalworking evidence, including large slag deposits and stone wall structures. This settlement indicates significant social complexity and possible long-distance trade connections with Arabia. The Kingdom of Dmt, the earliest known kingdom in Ethiopia with epigraphic evidence, is Dmt, which emerged around 980 BC. Its capital was at Yeha, where a temple, built around 700 BC in a Sabine architectural style, still stands despite the lack of similar structures in Yemen. While it was once assumed that Dmt was a Sabaean colony, current scholarship suggests that Sabaean influence was limited and possibly short-lived, representing a temporary trading or military alliance with Dmt or another Proto-Aksumite entity. The scarcity of surviving inscriptions and limited archaeological exploration have left questions regarding Dint's fate. It remains unclear if Dmt dissolved before the rise of Aksum, evolved into the Aksumite state, or contributed to the smaller states that coalesced into the Aksumite kingdom by the 1st century. The rise of Aksum, emerging in the 1st century CE, was the first powerful kingdom in Ethiopia. A successor to Dmt, Aksum united the northern Ethiopian highlands around the 1st century BCE. The religious leader Mani ranked Aksum alongside Rome, Persia, and China as one of the world's 4 great powers. The kingdom's origins are debated, including the identity of its earliest ruler. Historian Carlo Conti Rossini linked Zoscales of Aksum from the periplus of the Erythraean Sea with Zar Haklay in Ethiopian king lists. Other scholars, like G. W. B. Huntingford, argue Zoscales was a lesser leader, governing only Adulis. Inscriptions from southern Arabia celebrate victories over Gdrt, Negus of Habashat and of Aksum, placing him in the early 3rd century CE. A bronze scepter found at Atsbi Dera also mentions Gdr of Aksum. Aksum began minting coins featuring royal portraits under King Indubis by the late 3rd century. Religion. Christianity and beyond Christianity entered Ethiopia through Frumentius, consecrated as the first bishop by Saint Athanasius of Alexandria around 330 CE. Frumentius converted King Ezana, who documented his reign both before and after adopting Christianity. His early inscriptions invoke Mars, while later ones feature Christian symbols. Ezana's campaigns against Kush may have contributed to its decline, although it had been in decline previously. By the end of the 5th century CE, the 9 saints established monastic centers, bolstering Christianity's spread. By the 6th century CE, Aksum exercised influence over parts of Yemen. Around 523 CE, Emperor Justin I requested King Caleb's intervention against the Jewish Himyarite ruler Du Nuwas. Caleb defeated him and appointed Samuafa, Ashawa, as viceroy, though control waned as Abraham seized power. Caleb later abdicated, ending his days in a monastery. Aksum's trade flourished, extending to India and Ceylon, and maintained contact with Byzantium. By the 7th century CE, historical records of Aksum diminished. The last coin-minting king was Amar, who noted the Persian conquest of Jerusalem in 614 CE. Muslim tradition holds that Negus Sahama granted asylum to early Muslims in 615 CE, although some scholars believe Aksum was no longer the capital by then. Abu Jafar al-Khwarazmi wrote that the capital had moved to Jama, though this site remains unidentified. Aksum's decline has been attributed to environmental degradation, trade route changes, and possibly other factors. Middle Ages around 1000 AD, a Jewish princess named Yodit, Gudit, overthrew the Aksumite monarchy, massacring the royal family and ruling for 40 years. After her reign, her successors were eventually overthrown by Mara Takla Haymanot, an Agor lord, who founded the Zagwe dynasty. The Zagwe dynasty, which ruled from the 10th to the 13th centuries, is known for its remarkable rock-hewn churches, especially in Lalibela, and its relatively peaceful and culturally rich era, which focused on the Lasta region. The dynasty was also closely tied to the church, with several of its kings canonized. The Zagwe rulers maintained limited foreign contacts, though they did interact with Jerusalem and Cairo. In the late 12th century, during the Crusades, Ethiopia had relations with the Crusader states. By the early 14th century, Emperor Wedum Arad sent a European mission to foster alliances against Muslim states, though these efforts were unsuccessful. In 1270, Yekuno Amlak overthrew the last Zagwe king with the help of the Makhzumi dynasty and established the Solomonic dynasty. This new dynasty, which claimed descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, expanded Ethiopia's territory, particularly under Emperor Amdasian I. Despite a lack of fixed capitals, the Solomonic rulers promoted artistic, literary, and monastic development, including the rise of the Ewastathian order and a strong emphasis on Ethiopia's Christian identity. Emperor Dawit I waged a campaign in Egypt to support Coptic Christians and later established peaceful relations with the Mamluks. Under Emperor Zara Yacob, power was centralized, and pagan practices were suppressed. Diplomatic relations with Europe grew, particularly during the 15th century, when Ethiopian delegates attended the Council of Florence, and Portuguese emissaries arrived in the late 1400s. In 1520, Portugal provided crucial military support during the Ethiopian-Adal War, helping Emperor Lebna Dengel defeat the Muslim forces led by Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi. Gondar became the third major capital of the Christian Kingdom of Ethiopia, established by Emperor Fasilides in 1636, after Aksum and Lalibela. It quickly developed into a key center for commerce in the empire. In the early 17th century, Jesuit missionaries, following Vasco da Gama's expedition, set up their base in Fremona near Adwa. Father Pedro Pause gained favor at court and influenced Emperor Susenyos to convert to Catholicism, overseeing significant infrastructure projects. However, his successor, Afonso Mendes, faced opposition due to his harsh methods, leading to the expulsion of the Jesuits after Susenyos' death and the restoration of Orthodox Christianity under Fasilides in 1633. Fasilides made Gondar the capital and constructed the Fasil Gebi, royal enclosure, and several churches, including expansions in Aksum. Despite religious tensions, Ethiopian philosophy flourished, with figures like Zara Yacob, who wrote Hattata, exploring morality and reason. Art flourished during this period, influenced by Byzantine, Western Baroque, and Renaissance styles, with notable works like Walda Mariam's diptych paintings. Fasilides also dealt with military challenges, such as the Agor revolt in Lasta, and attempted to establish a trade route via Ottoman-controlled Massawa, though his diplomatic efforts failed. Meanwhile, the Oza Sultanate, which succeeded the Imamate of Oza in 1577, experienced decline after 1672, before being re-established in 1734 under Qaddafi, the founder of the Mudrito dynasty. Zemene Mesafint, era of the princes. The Zemene Mesafint, or era of the princes, was characterized by religious conflict, ethnic rivalry, and the rise of regional warlords. Historians often date its beginning to the assassination of Emperor Iyasu I, which weakened the monarchy and empowered regional nobles. In 1730, Empress Mentawab became co-ruler with her son, Iyasu II, and exerted significant influence during his reign and that of her grandson, Iyoas. After Iyasu II's death in 1755, Mentawab clashed with her daughter-in-law, Wubert, over control, which sparked ethnic tensions between their respective Oromo and Amhara supporters. The empire's financial troubles and the resulting ethnic conflicts among the Amhara, Agor, and Tigrinya peoples worsened under Iyoas, who favored the Oromo and spoke their language. His policies, including appointing his uncle Lubo as governor of Amhara, led to resistance and intervention by Ras Mikhail Sahul, who eventually gained control. Mikhail Sahul's influence sidelined the queens, leading to the installation of Yohannes II, who was later murdered. Tekel Haymanot II succeeded him, but Mikhail Sahul's dominance marked the shift toward military leaders holding power. During the era of the princes, Ethiopia's monarchy lost authority to warlords, and internal strife fostered foreign distrust, leading to Ethiopia's isolation. This ended in 1805 when a British mission reopened diplomatic ties, setting the stage for future foreign engagement under Emperor Tawadros II. Tawadros II and Tekel Georgis II, 1855–1872, Emperor Tawadros II, born Li Kassa in 1818 in Kwara, was the son of a minor chief. After his relative's death, he lost his inheritance and became a bandit leader, building a powerful army. His rise caught the attention of Regent Ras Ali and Empress Menan Liban Umade, and Kassa married Ras Ali's daughter. However, tensions grew, and Kassa defeated them, claiming the throne as Emperor Tawadros II in 1855. Tawadros focused on conquering Shewa, defeating its ruler Haile Melekot, who died after an unsuccessful attack on Tawadros. Haile Melekot's son, Sala Maryam, later Menelik II, succeeded him but was captured and held at Magdala by Tawadros. Tawadros sought to centralize and modernize Ethiopia but faced resistance from regional governors. In 1865, Sala Maryam escaped, returned to Shewa, and declared himself Negus. Tawadros' reign ended after a conflict with Britain, triggered when he imprisoned British nationals following Queen Victoria's failure to respond to his letter. A British force led by Sir Robert Napier defeated Tawadros, who committed suicide at Magdala in 1868. Yohannes IV, 1872–1889, after Tawadros' death, Ras Kasai of Tigray rose to power, proclaiming himself Emperor Yohannes IV in 1872 after defeating Emperor Tekel Georgis II. Yohannes' reign was marked by diplomatic and military challenges, including a conflict with Italy. The Italians, seeking territorial gains, clashed with Ethiopia during the 19th century scramble for Africa. While initial encounters were non-combative, later engagements escalated tensions. Yohannes also faced challenges from the dervishes of Sudan, leading to the Battle of Galabat in 1889, where he was fatally wounded. Following his death, Sala Maryam of Shewa declared himself Emperor Menelik II. Menelik II, 1889–1913, Menelik II's early reign included signing the Treaty of Wuchale with Italy in 1889, granting Italy control over parts of northern Ethiopia in exchange for military supplies. However, a disagreement over the treaty's interpretation led to the First Italo-Ethiopian War. Menelik's forces decisively defeated the Italians at the Battle of Adwa on March 1, 1896, securing Ethiopia's independence and prestige. Menelik expanded Ethiopia's borders through military campaigns, integrating the Oromo, Sidama, Garage, Walaita, and other groups into the empire with the support of Ras Gobina's militia. These conquests, however, involved significant violence and large-scale atrocities, including the subjugation of the Oromo and Tutsi peoples and widespread enslavement. Menelik's era also saw modernization efforts, including the 1894 railway concession to a French company, resulting in a railway line connecting Djibouti to Dire Dawa by 1902. Ieyasu, Empress Suditu, and Haile Selassie, 1913–1936, following Menelik I's death, his grandson Ieyasu ascended the throne but was deposed in 1916 due to his association with Islam. Empress Suditu, Menelik's daughter, became ruler, with Ras Tafari Makonnen as regent and heir. Ras Tafari succeeded Suditu as Emperor Haile Selassie I in 1930, consolidating power and pursuing modernization, including expanding educational opportunities. The abolition of slavery became a focal point for Haile Selassie, driven by international pressure and Ethiopia's League of Nations membership requirements, achieving significant progress by 1942. World War II. In 1941, Italian forces were defeated by British and Allied troops, including Ethiopian fighters, allowing Emperor Haile Selassie to reclaim his throne in May. After Italy's final defeat at Gondar in November, guerrilla warfare continued until 1943. Ethiopia underwent a brief period of British military administration before regaining full sovereignty in 1944, though some regions remained under British control for a few more years. Eritrea was federated with Ethiopia in 1952, but was annexed as a province in 1962, sparking the 30-year Eritrean War for Independence. Haile Selassie's post-war reign saw modernization efforts, including establishing the University College of Addis Ababa and updating the constitution in 1955. He strengthened Ethiopia's international relations, notably playing a key role in founding the Organization of African Unity in 1963. However, an attempted coup in 1960 and the costly conflict in Eritrea drew criticism. By the 1970s, with Selassie aging and facing internal challenges, debates over succession, economic issues, corruption, and a hidden famine worsened public sentiment. Supported by the Soviet Union, a communist movement gained traction, leading to a coup by Mengistu Haile Mariam in 1974 amid widespread unrest and military-led revolutionary actions. EPRDF dominance, 1991–2018. In July 1991, the EPRDF formed the Transitional Government of Ethiopia, creating a Council of Representatives and a transitional constitution. Political divisions emerged, with the Oromo Liberation Front and the Southern Ethiopia People's Democratic Coalition leaving the government in 1992 and 1993, respectively. A new constitution in 1994 established a parliamentary republic, and the EPRDF won the first multi-party election in 1995, with Meles Zenawi as prime minister. The 2005 election saw opposition gains but was tainted by fraud allegations, leading to violent protests and the imprisonment of opposition leaders, who were later released after international pressure. After Meles Zenawi's death in 2012, Hailemariam Desalegn succeeded him, maintaining EPRDF control. In 2016, protests against human rights abuses and economic inequality led to deaths and a state of emergency. Hailemariam resigned in 2018, marking Ethiopia's first peaceful transfer of power. Eritrean-Ethiopian conflict and Abiy Ahmed, 2018-present. Eritrea's independence in 1993 initially fostered friendly relations with Ethiopia, but a border war erupted in 1998, lasting until 2000 and inflicting heavy economic damage. Despite the 2000 peace treaty, tensions persisted until 2018. In April 2018, Abiy Ahmed became Prime Minister, introducing reforms and ending the conflict with Eritrea, earning a Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. His administration released political prisoners, promised democratic elections, and implemented economic changes. However, domestic challenges remain, with periods of unrest and calls for equitable governance.